Hello and welcome to Diecast Restos for a custom on this SIKU Range Rover. I'm Jason and today I'll be attempting to improve on the look of this Rangey, which at the moment looks a bit generic. I don't know what it is, maybe it's those wheels, maybe it's the lack of detail or colour, but it just looks like an anonymous station wagon at the moment. But I will be changing that with a lovely set of Creative One64 4x4 wheels and a lot of Artistro paint pen. SIKU released their Range Rover in 1978, and it always had the same 8-spoke chunky wheels throughout production. This set should certainly give it some more character. SIKU's model came in beige, blue or red initially, and could have smoky clear, blue tinted or yellow tinted windows. Models could come with or without a tow hook. In 1979, a firefighter version was added to SIKU's range. This took a red casting and had a rooftop set of blue beacons, a searchlight and a prominent aerial. At the same time, a police variant arrived, but in addition to the rooftop trinkets, it also had a police livery covering the sides and bonnet of a white casting. The last versions of the casting were produced in 1989. All came with a black interior piece and a separate grille piece, which had holes cut out of it for the headlamps to poke through that were cast into the base. The front of the model had a rivet post securing the body to the base, while the rear had a pair of tongue-and slots. It of course replicates the iconic Range Rover. It's my first official Range Rover casting that I've worked on, though the police patrol by Matchbox is unmistakably a Range Rover though. Following the introduction of the Series 1 Land Rover in 1948 and the subsequent estate conversions by Tickford, Rover was convinced that a market for a more comfortable 4x4 existed, particularly in parts of Africa and Australia. Development of a Road Rover commenced in 1958, utilising a Land Rover chassis paired with an estate car body. The production car would go on to break away from Land Rover's leaf spring suspension traditions by using coil springs instead. Because of its increased weight, it had disc brakes all round and power steering would hastily be introduced. It had permanent all-wheel drive with a high-low range transfer box for off-road use. For many years, it would only be available with a 4-speed manual transmission. It was powered by a detuned 135 horsepower version of the Buick-derived Rover 3.5 litre V8. The body of the Range Rover changed very little during its first 10 years of production. Like other Land Rovers, its body skin was mostly aluminium except for the split folding tailgate, rear corners and bonnet. Project engineers had designed their own functional body panels for the prototypes as simple protection for the occupants. However, this clean, square-cut look was deemed so good that designer David Batch only altered the detailing, like changing to a different front grille and headlamp design. It would also be the first vehicle to feature Batch's new symmetric dashboard, which made the pod-style instrument binnacle easier to switch between left and right-hand drive during assembly. From its introduction until 1981, the Range Rover had only been available in a 3-door body style. The reason for this was for rigidity purposes, but the lack of rear doors made access to the back seats awkward through the large, heavy front doors. A second door latch was available for rear passengers to use for full autonomy in leaving the vehicle. Some companies offered conversions to 5 doors in the late 1970s, including Monteverdi, whose designs were even approved by Land Rover. In 1981, the Monteverdi design would be adopted as an official 5-door Range Rover. It quickly proved to be popular, and its introduction led to the 3-door car being discontinued in the UK in 1984. It would leave production in other markets 10 years later. 1984 would additionally see a major push by Land Rover to shift the Range Rover upmarket. A long overdue automatic transmission from Chrysler became available from 1982, though a new ZF 4-speed Autobox arrived with the 1984 upgrades, as did the availability of leather trim. An upgraded dashboard, door cards and walnut inlays arrived the following year. Petrol-fueled Range Rovers were fitted with carburettors until 1986, when they were replaced by Lucas electronic fuel injection. This improved both performance and fuel economy. 2.4 litre diesel engines were first offered from 1986 too, as well as the front end receiving a new grille with horizontal slats. The gentrification of the Range Rover continued, as the bonnet and door hinges were concealed and the fuel filler was hidden behind a hinged flap. It would be redesignated the Classic in 1994 following the arrival of its successor, the P38A generation Range Rover. Production of the Classic would continue until 1996. The Range Rover had been introduced by British Leyland as a car for all reasons. It was very much an all-in-one vehicle, boasting a 100 mph top speed, 3.5 tonne towing capacity, a spacious cabin for 5 occupants, disc brakes all round, and its full-time dual-range 4-wheel drive. This off-road capability, in addition to its creature comforts, set it apart from anything else available at its 1970 launch. Its credentials were put to the test in 1972, when it and a Series 2A Land Rover became the first vehicles to traverse both American continents, north to south, through the Darien Gap. Range Rovers would also claim victory in the 1979 and 1981 Paris-Dakar rallies. They were often used as the basis for ambulances, police and fire response vehicles due to its strong chassis and drivetrain. Two were even used as Pope-mobiles during Pope John Paul II's 1982 visit to the UK. Another conversion was to a triaxle 6x4 layout, primarily for airfield rapid response. These vehicles were built by Carmichael on the Carmichael Commando chassis. Matchbox made a model of one of these, which I hope to work on at some point in the not too distant future. These Commandos were called TACR-2s, and were employed by both the Royal Air Force and the Royal Navy. There were also civilian versions of the 6-wheeled Range Rover built by Carmichael and other coach builders, plus there were also stretch limousines, open-top hunting cars and convertible Range Rovers built over the years. But back to my SIKU build now. As you will have seen, I've painted mine in Rover Applejack green and have begun detailing it. For the interior, I wanted a dark orange to light brown vinyl look. I attempted to achieve this by primering over the black plastic piece, painting it white, and then went over it with Tamiya's clear orange. That will not be its final form. I'm really pleased with the body though, especially where I've removed the paint from the Range Rover lettering on the tailgate. I didn't chip off the hyphen between Range and Rover though. I'm not sure why SIKU modelled it like that. I will continue detailing and rejoin you at the next interior paint application. So, thinking that the interior needed to be a bit darker, I went over the clear orange with clear red. Big mistake. It came out looking like a solid red, not the look I was going for. I went back to orange, this time using Highcoat's Ford Signal Orange instead of Tamiya's Clear. To darken the interior, I chose to drown it in Citadel Gloss Nuln Oil to almost overemphasise the moulded creases in the seating. It's not the best look when viewing it as a standalone piece, but when it's in the casting, I can assure you it really suits it in my opinion. Anyway, as I begin the rebuild, I've already slotted in that smoky transparency, and in goes the steering wheel piece. Next is that interior. Then I grab the base with those chunky wheels already fitted and attach the grille piece. Then it's just a case of marrying up the body and base. The rear connects via the 2 tongue and slot points, while the front is push fit over the very narrow front rivet post. As a finishing touch, I've printed some authentic period correct German number plates, reading the same registration as was originally cast. Here is how this SIKU 1341 Range Rover looked to begin with. The beige paint was very chipped, showing plenty of signs of play wear. I really didn't like the look of these wheels either. They make it look very generic, and due to its lack of body detailing, if it wasn't for the distinctive grille or rear Range Rover badge, you may be hard pressed to identify it. I wanted to give it its identity back with a couple of modifications, and here's how those changes turned out. First up, the wheels. This Range Rover Rostyle set from Creative One64 looked perfect on it. The rubbers may be a little chunky, but they certainly fill the wheel arches. As I said earlier, the shading on the interior works far better looking at it through the model's windows, rather than just seeing the piece for what it really is. The Range Rover lettering looks good on the back, and that vinyl C-pillar covering gives the casting real personality. I'm not sure this shade of green was ever really used on Range Rovers at the time, but I think that it suits it nicely. Let me know your thoughts about my customisation of this SIKU down in the comments, and perhaps tell me what you might have done differently. Either way, leave a like if you enjoyed it, and if you want to see more SIKU videos, do tell me. Please subscribe if you haven't yet jumped on board to see all of my latest works, but all that leaves me to say is thanks for watching, and I'll see you again for the next one. Bye for now.
Head for the country, and the luxury saloon takes on a new character. It's unstoppable. Here we see the reason for all the built-in features. The tremendous power of the all-aluminium engine. It's unstoppable. Climbing, pushing on, up and over the landscape through every obstacle.